This is Everybody Pulls the Tarp with your host, Andrew Moses. Each week, Andrew talks with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets.
My guest is Washington Commanders running back Austin Ekeler.
Every day we write a page of our life. The best thing is you have the pen in your hand.
Three-time Olympic gold medalist Tessa Virtue. Welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thanks for thinking of me, and I'm a big fan of the podcast and of yours. So anytime you text or call, I'm here.
Mike Mills from REM.
The key to that was realizing at some point fairly early on that this was probably our life's work.
Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas.
My guest is 2023 WNBA Coach of the Year, Stephanie White.
The hardest thing for a coach is trying to prioritize how much time you put in one area or another.
Former MLB player, coach, and manager Clint Hurdle.
That is the best title of any podcast out there in America, and the content matches up to it. Andrew, you do a fantastic job. I'm a big fan. Keep up the great work.
World-renowned organizing expert Shira Gill.
You can improve your life simply by removing things.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people.
Let's go. Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I can't even begin to describe how excited I am to share this week's episode with you. You are about to hear from the person currently starring in one of the biggest and most iconic roles in Broadway history. And what she shares are some of the most vulnerable and thought-provoking ideas that we have ever uncovered here on this podcast. Listeners, this week my guest is Broadway star Keri René Fuller. And Keri currently stars as Elphaba in Wicked on Broadway. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say this. If you've been listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp for a while now, welcome back. And if you are a new listener, I just want to take a moment to say how glad I am that you found the show and officially welcome you to the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. I hope you'll hit that follow button right now in whatever podcast app you're listening to and join me each week so we all can learn from the world's top performers together. Okay, now let me get this conversation with Keri all set up for you. Now, as I mentioned moments ago, Keri currently stars as Elphaba in Wicked on Broadway. She's been the principal full-time Elphaba on Broadway since early March, after having previously served as the standby for the role beginning in July of 2025. Prior to Wicked, Keri's previous Broadway roles include parts in Six, Jagged Little Pill, and Waitress, and her off-Broadway and touring credits include roles in The Last Bimbo of the Apocalypse and Cats. In addition, Keri has appeared on TV in Law & Order SVU, and she also writes and performs her own original music with an alt-indie rock vibe under the name Didda on all streaming platforms. Now, as you will hear, Keri and I covered a ton of ground. We explored her journey from a childhood in Oklahoma all the way to Broadway's big stage. Keri talked candidly about her first few years in New York, when she struggled to break through, and how she navigated it all. And of course, we talked a lot about Elphaba. You'll hear a rare, behind-the-scenes look into how Keri performs her craft in a role that is widely considered one of the most difficult and demanding roles on Broadway. Keri also shares a raw, unfiltered look at many of the most complex ideas that she wrestles with as part of her journey. Like I said earlier, what Keri shared with me is some of the most vulnerable and thought-provoking ideas we have ever uncovered here on Everybody Pulls the Tarp. So as you listen to my conversation with Keri, I want you to soak it all in and think deeply about how the ideas she shares can be applied in your own personal and professional journeys. And as you listen, I also want you to share this episode with someone in your life who would benefit from hearing what Keri has to say as well. My friends, Keri's story is truly inspiring, and I am so grateful that we got to have this conversation. The ideas she shared apply far beyond the stage, and I hope you take away as much from Keri as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Keri René Fuller. Keri, it is so great to have you here. I am so excited for this conversation. Where I want to begin, take me all the way back to the beginning of your theater journey. What is your first memory of the theater?
Oh my gosh. The theater came after performing. So I'm going to tell you, because I was just telling my husband about this morning. I remember when I was a little girl, I've been singing my whole life. I sang at my preschool graduation, and my parents were like, oh, she's kind of good at this. Okay, whatever. As soon as we could afford it, they put me into voice lessons. Until that point, I just listened to like Celine Dion. I like to say Celine Dion was my first voice teacher, and I just listened to her. But I remember when I finally got into voice lessons, I was singing I was born and raised in Oklahoma. So I was singing at the Quail Springs Mall.
Okay.
And I was singing My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. It's still my grandfather's favorite song that I sing. And I remember looking out as I was singing, and people were coming out of the stores, and they were like coming out to the banister in the different floors. And I just remember looking up in awe, because I was like, wait, what? Am I doing this? Did I do this? And that was the beginning of everything, of absolutely everything.
That is just incredible. I can start to visualize like what that moment looked like, and probably how it felt for you. How old were you roughly at that moment?
Oh my gosh, I was in middle school. I think I was in middle school. I don't even know I'm so bad at ages. I was young.
So you take this moment, and probably people are kind of coming out of whatever stores they're in. They're gravitating to you and your performance in that mall. Is that really one of the first signals, let's call it, that where you said to yourself, hey, I might be pretty good at this? You mentioned that your parents said, hey, yeah, I think you're pretty good, but like...
Yeah, but they were my parents. They're
right.
supposed to tell me that I'm good when I'm young. But a pivotal part of that story is actually after the fact, because during the song, my tape, because this is cassette tapes, y'all.
Yes.
It came unraveled in the machine during the performance and just stopped. And then they fixed it, whatever. I just kept singing. And then they fixed it. And then when the tape started again, I was still in the correct key. So that was when I was like, oh, wow, what a magic trick that was. I had no idea that I was capable of that.
Wow. So you talked about as soon as your family could afford it, you got into voice lessons. When do you recall that it started to get maybe more serious? Something that you could start to see was more than a hobby for you?
I mean, when I was doing community theater throughout middle school, it was still very much, I loved it so much. I wasn't sure that it was like my career. Like back then I didn't have a concept of like career. And I just had things that I liked doing. And so I think that it had to have been high school, because I went to, like, I lived in the same house, but I changed school districts so that I could go to this performing arts high school, class in School of Advanced Studies. And I remember it was a public school, but you had to, in order to be accepted into the major of your choice, which mine was drama, you had to audition. And so that was when my focus, like my intentional focus towards honing a skill and a craft, actually, that was when the study began. You know what I mean? And I still continue to do community theater, but all of that was like practice. It was all practice.
What did it start to look like when Keri René Fuller is starting to really study this craft and hone this craft into something, even if at that point you don't necessarily exactly where it's going to lead you?
I mean, I remember I loved Shakespeare in school. I loved Shakespeare. A lot of my very first productions were like Midsummer Night's Dream, and they were all Shakespeare. And I just wanted to understand why this man spoke this way. And so I had one of my best friends in high school. We would do scansion just for fun. I don't know if you know what scansion is, but it's He wrote an iambic pentameter. Sometimes he wrote in prose, which is normally how we read now, but like most of his, like his to be or not to be, that is the question that is in iambic pentameter. And so you can scan that out based on stressed and unstressed syllables. So it was like, we just nerded out just for fun for hours, We would just go to the library during lunch break and just pull the Shakespeare stuff out of the bookshelf and then just like start writing out soliloquies we wanted to learn and just learning what was like going deep into the skeletal makeup of what these monologues were, because to me, they just seemed so big. They seemed insurmountable. The to be or not to be soliloquy and like the Richard III soliloquy, like all of them they just seemed too big for human beings, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
I was just so determined to try to understand, just like scratch the surface of like how this man wrote these things.
What else is going on at this point? I mean, is this totally all consuming for you, or are there other things that you're dabbling in?
I was able to split my time well. I had a lot of plates spinning. I did community theater, took dance classes. I took voice lessons. I was taking scene study classes, like really anything I could get my hands on. I was really trying to do, not to mention like all of the extracurriculars involved in school and all of the things that these projects we were having to do for school. So I spun a lot of plates, but the best thing about book study of Shakespeare, which is what I mostly was doing, like you can put that down, but you can't, like, you go to a dance class, you're done in an hour. But I was mostly fascinated. I was like, what do I do with my time when nobody is asking for it? Like when I'm not forced to discipline myself at a ballet bar for an hour. Like nobody's holding me accountable to that. Like what do I hold myself accountable to? And a lot of that was like as soon as with the advent of the internet and being able to just go on YouTube or look up scripts on Reddit or Tumblr or whatever, I would just look for scenes in movies that I loved and I would just read them to myself, or I would find songs that seemed too hard to accomplish and I would go inside of my closet in my back room and I would just sing forever. My poor parents in the shower. Oh man, I don't know how they just like watched a movie at night. I would take 2-hour long showers just singing through the score of the last 5 years. Like it was ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Keri, I'm curious then, well, actually pausing there for a second and just examining something that you just shared moments ago. I mean, the idea of looking at like how we spend our time when it's not scheduled or it's not set by someone else, or as you described, I think is a really good litmus test for where our interests are, where our passions are. And it really can be a signal to us as to like where we want to take our career, where we want to take our path. Is that around the time that you began to come to this realization that this was something you might want to pursue professionally for your entire life? Or was that not until maybe college? I know you went to a small liberal arts college in Ohio called Baldwin Wallace University. Was it in college that the professional aspirations came to be, or was it when you're singing for 2 hours in the shower?
It was around high school. It was just, at that point in time, I just had no other skills and I didn't have a desire to learn other skills. I was very pleased spending my time reading scenes and doing scansion and singing in the shower. But at the same time, looking back, hindsight is 2020, right? And I do wish that I would have had a bit more discipline. Like, I wish I would have played piano more. My parents put me in piano lessons and I just hated it. I hated how hard it was for me. And because singing came so easily to me, I preferred doing that. So while I agree with you, I do think that it can be a litmus test of where our passions lie and where we're hoping our career goes. I think it can also be a procrastination too. I think that it's both.
Interesting. Yes.
And in my experience, it has worked out. I do get to spend my days right now singing and acting and being green. I fell asleep to the cast album of What Is This Feeling when I was a little girl. So like it is mirroring what I was ingesting at the time, but I sit down and try and learn music and I can't really play it. And so it's kind of both. It can be both.
Very, very interesting. So I'm curious, okay, now like fast forwarding from high school to college, talk about that period of time. What was most impactful? What were the biggest learnings?
Oh man, my failures for sure. I know that's such a cliche answer, but I remember I was a smart student. I can't say that I was like a good student. I got in trouble a lot for like talking in class and just like in elementary school, you would be hard pressed to find me not at my own desk, like facing a bookshelf because my teachers were like, Keri, you cannot. I was just so bored. I was so bored in
Interesting.
My young years. I was trying to learn cursive when everybody was still learning how to I was just so bored. And so I grew up being good at school, but in college, it was different because all of my school were these skills that I had procrastinated really honing when I was in high school. So like I failed piano. I failed piano twice. You're only supposed to take, so if you have 8 semesters in your 4 years of college, you're supposed to only take 6 semesters. I ended up taking it for all 8 semesters because I failed it twice. And that's a mortifying phone call to make to your parents. Hey, so I failed it. I have to take it again. Sorry, never failed a class in my whole life. Same thing with solfege. Solfege is, for those of you who don't know, it's oral listening skills when it comes to music, hearing music and being able to write it down on a staff based on the information you're given, and also singing intervals without any accompaniment underneath you. That was so excruciatingly difficult for me. And mostly, same as keyboarding, because I wasn't practicing enough, because I was spending my time, which I can't say that I fully regret, because like I was spending my time working on the shows that I was in. And so college was a constant push and pull of like learning how to be a good student in classes that were so difficult for me. And I failed. Learning how to be a good actor, learning how to be a good singer, a good dancer, learning how to grow up, learning how to be away from home, be without my parents for the first time in my life, trying to learn how to forge friendships and like meaningful ones and not just like the party scene of college. I didn't really party in college. I went to a couple, but it was just like, it just wasn't for me. So I guess it was an unconventional college experience when you ask a lot of people, but I wouldn't go back and change it. Even failing keyboard and solfege, I wouldn't even change that because that was very, very humbling, very humbling.
I always say that failure is just a moment to learn something, and that there's no wasted motion in our lives. There's no path we walk that really serves no purpose, like in the long run, because we either learn something, it teaches us something. And I think there's a lot in what you shared there that I think is just an incredible idea that everybody should take away, which is there are going to be things that don't go well. So fast forwarding a little bit again, Keri, so the childhood in Oklahoma, small liberal arts college in Ohio, and then to New York City, the big city.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Had you ever been to New York before? Did you know anything about New York? Had you been to a Broadway show before?
I had been to New York twice. I went with my community theater my junior year of high school. Was it my junior year or sophomore year? One of the two. And I had been once in college. I came for the senior showcase after my freshman year. And just because I wanted to see what it was about, I wanted to see what the next 3 years of my life was working towards. And I did see shows. I remember I saw my very first Broadway show that I ever saw was American Idiot. It really set me on a trajectory for rock musicals. And I can't say that I'm upset about it. I loved that show. So when I moved here, in my senior year of college, I was actually auditioning in the city, and there were a couple opportunities that came across while I was still in school that proved to be like really encouraging. Like I was in final callbacks for Waitress. I was for the production at ART, and which ended up, spoiler alert, being my Broadway debut, but many years later. And then I was also in final callbacks for the revival of Les Miserables. And so I had, I don't want to say a warped expectation of how I was going to fare in the city, but I definitely think that I was really buying the story that I was going to land in New York and just take off. I really think that, and that's everybody's hope, right? So I had enough like quote unquote proof that I would do okay. But when I moved to New York in 2015, it proved to be very, very different. Very different. I did not get my first job until like over a year after I moved to the city. I got told no all the time. I got cut all the time. I luckily signed to an agency when I moved to the city, right when I moved, but that doesn't guarantee you a job. Far, far from it, actually. And it wasn't until 2018, 3 years later, that I finally booked Waitress. And that was tough because there were times over those 3 years that I was like, I'm not cut out for this. I don't like eating tuna and peanut butter and saltines as my meals all the time.
What types of things did you say to yourself or do in those first 3 years to continue onward?
I was horrible to myself. I would talk to myself in ways that you would just never, ever talk to somebody you actually cared about. And mostly I would tell myself that like, you have no other skills, so this has to work out. And it was true. I really didn't. I lucked out. And I ended up working at a gym. I was like, I need to make money since I'm not making money from acting. I got to make money because the last thing I wanted to do was ask my parents for anything more than they had already given me. They gave me everything. They supported me and encouraged me for my entire education. So I was like, I have to do this myself. So I got a job and I worked the front desk for like a little over a year. And then I became a personal trainer and found a network of people that I felt really supported by. I still keep in touch with many of them to this day.
That's so cool.
And many of them have seen me in my Broadway shows. It's very special looking back now. But honestly, I didn't encourage myself. If that's the answer that you're looking for, I was not encouraging to myself at all. I just knew that the only thing I had was this. And so it had to work out. It just had to.
There's no answer that I'm looking for.
Yes, no, I don't mean that in like a derogatory way. I wish it was more encouraging than that.
No, I actually think what you shared there is one of the most transparent, profound, and important ideas that I've ever heard. I mean, there wasn't some like magic wand. There wasn't some little mindset trick that you can tell yourself. Even that idea of like telling yourself that you have no other skills, even though I'm sure you do, that this is all you got.
I absolutely do. Like, I even say those things to myself now, and I'm Elphaba on Broadway. And that's what's so funny about all this. And what is so like innately human, I think, is that I am in such a fortunate circumstance right now. And yes, I have worked for it. I have scratched and clawed to be here, but it's not lost on me that I have all of the gratitude in the world. And that like, just because I worked this hard doesn't mean that it's owed me at all. And I still, playing Elphaba with green in the hairline and all, I still tell myself, I'm like, Keri, this is all you have. Like, this is it.
It's just a remarkable way about thinking about what you're doing and the world that you're operating in. And it keeps you humble no matter what you achieve. It's clear to me just from the early part of our conversation here that there is such tremendous gratitude and appreciation for how far you've come, what you've accomplished, and what you still plan to accomplish. And that desire, that drive, that intestinal fortitude is probably one of the key things that's propelled you and will continue to propel you. I don't know if there's never an answer that I'm expecting, but what you shared there was just certainly not, I'm never looking for an answer, but it's an answer that has really struck me. And it's an answer that I'm going to think about for a long time to come, because it's just incredible to think about how you're processing all that through that period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because all you want to do, I think that this is every field, but all I wanted to do was prove to myself that I didn't waste my time, that my parents didn't, because I'm an only child. So I raised in low income family. And so everything that I was allotted growing up was of great sacrifice from my parents. And so the last thing I wanted was to not do it for them. I wanted it for me. And of course, they were going to be proud of me no matter what. No matter what. They've always been so proud of me. But that was a huge driver. Was it can't be for nothing. It cannot be for nothing.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today. That is, Keri, one of the most common through lines through the now over 250 conversations that I've had with Olympians, professional athletes, Grammy-winning musicians, Broadway stars, CEOs, entrepreneurs, best-selling authors, you name it. This idea that they want to prove to themselves that they can do it. They don't want to let themselves down, but there's also people in their orbit, whether it be parents, as you described, or coaches, or people that believed in them that they want to make proud, and they want to make them feel as if it was all worth it. And there was no wasted motion. I'll never forget an Olympic soccer player, World Cup champion, multiple gold medals. She talked about this idea of not spending a lot of her time and headspace thinking about proving doubters wrong, but instead proving the believers right. And that's something that I've thought about for a long time since she and I had that conversation. And I hear some of that in what you're describing as well.
That's a lot more positive way to think about it for sure. I would be lying if I told you that I didn't absolutely think about proving the doubters wrong at
and
some point in time. But it always, proving the believers right always wins in the end. But I definitely will flicker through and I'm just I
actually think balance of the two is interesting. And I would probably be in the camp of a balance of two. There are definitely times in my life where I am passionate about proving some doubter wrong.
Of course.
And there's also times when you're thinking to yourself, okay, it would be really nice to show the people that believed in me, that supported me, that helped me along the way, that they were right. And that I was a cause worth believing in and worth pouring into. Yeah. So I'm curious, Keri, was there a point where, and with most of the successful performers from all over the world that I've talked to, most say that they never feel like they've made it. They've never feel like they've achieved whatever they're looking for. And we'll talk a bit now about the Elphaba role and all of that. But I'm curious, just to kind of center on this idea of making it. Have you had a moment yet where you feel like, I've made it?
I think when I allow myself to be present, I have those moments a lot. But the trap that I find myself in a lot as well is like, okay, what's next? Because you become so addicted. You become so addicted to inspiring people. And you become so addicted to seeing generations of people in the audience, like grandparents, their daughters, and then their daughters. You become so addicted to mattering to people. And so you're always kind of like, okay, now I mean, I don't by any means feel like I have Elphaba like under my belt. Like I haven't figured her out at all. I will not figure her out even over the course of the year that I will play her. She's an infinite well of things to learn. But in my more confident moments, I'm like, okay, like, what am I going to do after this? Like, now I feel like I'm finally learning what it feels like to not be self-conscious on stage or to not hold myself accountable to getting every single note spot on and allowing my emotion to flow through it. And like when I'm having those thoughts, I do think, okay, like, what's next? But then you also ask yourself, am I ever going to feel this again? Because the nature of our business is very volatile. Like,
Yes.
I'm Elphaba today, but in March of 2027, I'm not anymore. And that's not a depressing, oh, woe is me thing, because it's a cycle. I was only ever able to step into this role because the amazing Lindsay Cabedes moved on. So it's a cycle. We all support each other, and I can't wait for the next Elphaba to stand on my shoulders. I cannot wait. But that does mean that I will ask myself, okay, what's next? And sometimes I feel way more powerful in that than I do other days. Like last night, I literally was talking to one of my friends in the cast, and I was like, it really would be nice to just be satisfied. And that seems so ungrateful when I hear myself say it, but it's also the plague of just being an ambitious person. I just have always been deeply, deeply ambitious. Whether that's a blessing or a curse, I don't know yet.
It's so beautifully stated there, Keri, in how you describe it. It's just a very honest, authentic, transparent way of describing a way that I think a lot of people feel. I think that a lot of people who are ambitious, who have passions and are hungry to accomplish things feel exactly the way you just described, and they're afraid to say it. And maybe because they just heard Elphaba on Broadway say it.
I hope so. I really hope so, because that's literally the only place that I've ever been able to move from. I remember meeting my husband back in, it was 2020. I had just gotten back from tour. He obviously was not my husband then, but I met him. And I remember being so captivated in a very platonic way. I was just so captivated by his space, the space he created for the people around him, myself included, to admit vulnerabilities. And I had never really felt that before. It took me till, how old was I? 25 years old to understand how much strength is in vulnerability, and that vulnerability is very, very difficult to come by. And that is now my pursuit. If there's anything that the Elphaba platform or the Wicked platform that I hope it gives me, is this platform for people to be able to hear me say, like, you have to give yourself and other people permission to find themselves, the good, bad, and the ugly. You have to. That's what we're trying to do in theater too. If I can get that across and anyone hears it and is like, okay, well, now that she said it, I'm nobody, but now that she said it, I'll try. Because that was the only time that I moved forward and anywhere. I felt like I was moving so laterally, and I was so like caught in just cycles of complacency and comfortability. And it took one person coming into my life being like, you know, you're allowed to want more. You're allowed. It doesn't make you a narcissist. It doesn't make you egocentric. It doesn't make you selfish to want more for yourself. It was just like, it changed everything for me.
Wow. Keri, like you said, Elphaba is a role that you're going to hold for a period of time, and then somebody else will stand on your shoulders next and take over the role. But today, you are Elphaba on Broadway. There's only one person on the face of the earth that can say that, the principal Elphaba on Broadway. And I am curious, I can tell, I mean, obviously you can tell just from the conversation that we've had already, how much passion you have for everything that you do, but how much passion and belief you have in this role that you are playing. This is not just a role to you. This is a very important role with meaning. And I am curious, take me behind the scenes a little bit of how this all came together. Obviously, you were the standby for Elphaba for a period of time, now in the role full time. Was it always a role that you aspired to? Was it something that you always believed that you could do? Talk about the process of booking Elphaba. What went into that? Take me behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back to my Celine Dion was my voice teacher days, Idina Menzel also taught me how to sing. So I definitely grew up listening
You could teach Idina Menzel about singing.
I definitely grew up listening to her sing Elphaba, of course. And I remember loving the music, right? Like, I think I've even told Stephen Schwartz this to his face. I was like, I know that you're not going to, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, I know you're not going to agree with me, but I do think that Wicked is a perfect score. I think it's a perfect musical score. And so I always wanted to do it. Like, I always wanted to play Elphaba. I didn't quite know why. I thought that it was just because she had really good songs and I wanted to sing them. But then I started going in for Elphaba and I kept trying to book it. I kept trying so hard to be Elphaba. And it wasn't until I just kind of was that it worked out for me. I've been in for Elphaba. I was in maybe 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
Before they forgot about me. And then it took literally working a gig with the conductor. And he asked me, he's like, why haven't you played Elphaba? And I was like, you tell me. You tell me. And then I got an appointment. I auditioned again, but this time was different because I had let go of her. I had let go of trying to get her and trying to be her. And the main thing that I realized going into it this time was that I had always wanted to be Elphaba, of course, but I never wanted to be Elphaba more than I wanted to be wanted for Elphaba. I wanted to be validated by achieving Elphaba. Wicked is such a pinnacle for anyone, really, in the Broadway community. Like, Glinda and Elphaba they're a gold standard because they're hard roles. They're fleshed out roles. They're complicated roles, complex, just so vulnerable, so rich, so flawed. Like, Wicked is the gold standard for a reason. It has nothing to do with me or anyone that's ever played the role. It just is. And so to go in this time with the sheer goal of just doing right by myself and the score and the book is, I believe, like what made me really come through this time. Because if you really think about it, like Elphaba in the musical, she has no idea what she's doing. And so I think by me not having any idea what I was doing walking into this audition, I think that's what made it work out.
It's so interesting to think about. It's like the moment that you kind of let go in a way, you let go of some aspect of this pursuit was the moment that the pursuit almost propelled itself.
Yeah. You have to make space. And it's not just in career too. You have to make space for like alignment to occur. You can't force alignment. And I feel very, very fortunate that it aligned for me this time because this role has changed me in ways that I will forever be grateful And it's only month 2. Only month 2.
I was going to say.
I still have 10 more. Can you even imagine if I'm already this like indebted to everything that this role in this show and these people have taught me, then wow, they'll do a follow-up interview at the end of my contract.
I was thinking just that, Keri. I'm like, I want to talk to Keri at the end of this because I can't even imagine. I mean, all the reflection and all the powerful emotion and ideas and inspiration that you've taken away from the role so far. I can't even imagine. We're just in the early goings of this. It just speaks to how remarkable Elphaba is and what Elphaba means, but it also speaks to how incredible you've embraced this and have put everything you have into this opportunity, which is incredibly inspiring, I think, for everybody to watch and hear. Certainly for me. Keri, I'm curious. So take me kind of tactically through the transition from playing a role as a standby to the principal full-time, because what are the differences? How did things change aside from the workload? And we'll get into the workload because, as you said, I mean, one of the hardest roles to play on Broadway. I want to dig into all that, but just let's also center first on the idea of that transition between the standby and the full-time Elphaba.
Yeah. So I had never stood by before. This was my first experience with that, and it's great. I went in being like, no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I intellectually wasn't holding on to the lines very well because she talks a lot. Elphaba talks a lot.
Yeah, a lot of lines.
Lots of lines. And
kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So it just fundamentally, I had my rehearsal period, my normal rehearsal period, just like anyone. And then you don't really know when you're going to debut. You are like, okay, here I am as a standby. I'm ready. But am I ready? You're always asking yourself, am I actually ready? And so I was at the theater 30 minutes before, at half hour. I would be called at half hour. I would be in my dressing room with Jenna and Jennifer Newberry, the Glinda standby. And I would just be ready. I mean, I wasn't painted green or anything. I was able to stay in my own street clothes and whatever, but I would just be ready should the need arise. And so I went on a handful of times, and then, but there was always kind of this sense of longing, right? There was always a sense of, oh, if I did one show, I was like, oh, I really wish that I got to do it again tonight. Or I really wish that I would get to do it tomorrow, because there are certain things that you find only through repetition. And when I say certain things, I mean 98% of anything on stage you find only through repetition. And I just wasn't getting repetition. And so I was constantly a little on edge because I never felt fully prepared. Even after I had done the show, multiple times, I would rehearse it upstairs in the rehearsal studio, and I would sing through the material, and I would run on the treadmill while I was singing to make sure my stamina was up. And then I would Renaissance run my lines just to myself. I would write out all of my lines in a journal and then cross-reference them. Which ones did I get wrong? Mark that with an X, So I was doing all of the quote unquote work, but the work means nothing until you do it for real on stage, in situ. And luckily I was so supported. Every time I went on, whoever was Ali Trim was the principal Glinda at the time. Oh my gosh. She held me. She shoved with love. Jordan Litz, who was our Fiero at the time, same exact thing. And I felt so cared for. And so that was the kind of unsettledness of being standby, to move to full time when I know exactly how many shows I am expected to do. And then I get the repetition, and then I'm able to explore, because the lines now are second nature to me now. I know what I'm saying now. I obviously try to stay in the present moment. And also with repetition, that's more difficult as well. So certain things become easier and certain things become more difficult.
Interesting. Yes.
And because when I was standby, I was constantly, annoyingly so present because I was like, oh, where do I go now? And now that I know where I'm going, now that I know what I'm saying, I have to be present in the story. And that's a whole different kettle of fish. And so those are the main differences, and just like how your lifestyle changes. My entire life outside of when I was a standby, I was able to see my friends. I was able to go out for a dinner or whatever, go see shows. And now that I'm full time, my lifestyle has just had to change. I don't get to socialize because everything I do during my day is in service to doing the show at night. And that's an amazing, incredible responsibility. But it also means that a lot of times I feel like a really bad friend, or a lot of the times I feel like a bad wife. I know none of these things are true. I feel like a bad daughter. I know none of them are true, but just bandwidth that I have is so small that it makes you think that those things are true. So it's just a very different thing. It's just a different thing. You've got to land a plane every single night. And it's not like just like a cute little twin engine. It's like a Boeing 747. This is a big one.
It's a
it's
big
like
one.
737, 757, a big plane. You've got to land that every single night.
My airplane terminology is not one of my strengths. It's something like that.
Your listeners, somebody will know.
Somebody will know, and somebody will let me know the exact
Drop it
number.
in the comments.
Exactly. I'm so grateful that we're getting to have this conversation because I know just how limited your time is and how, like you described there, everything that you do is throughout the day is in service of the show and the performance at night. And I've read a little bit about your process and routine in other things that you've shared. I mean, you say 8 hours of sleep is a must. You generally try and exercise every single day, maybe run, cycling, or a yoga class, breakfast, shower. Your first words of the day are usually not even spoken until around 12:30 or 1 o'clock p.m. so that your vocal cords can have time to rest. And then you've got gradual warm up, things going on in your life, and it's off to the theater. How long did it take you to really figure out that routine? And maybe you don't even feel like you had the routine figured out 2 months in. Maybe you're still figuring it out, but how quickly did that all kind of come together and you started to feel comfortable in, hey, this is my process. And if I do my process, things are generally going to be in a position to work out in the evening?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely in flux all the time. So like, I think that definitely when I started the job, I was like very overly cautious, and like I would literally leave this is still pretty much true. After the shows at night, I stop talking. I warm down, I cool down, and like I don't speak. Like when I stage door, I'm on vocal rest when I stage door because like I can't. If I were to have a conversation with everybody I wanted to have a conversation with at the stage door, I would not be able to do the show the next day. And luckily my husband's in the business. He totally understands it. He supports it immensely. So like at least there's that. But I sometimes like my first month, I was really strict with everything you just said. And now I'm learning what balance is a bit more. I'm feeling a little more confident in like myself. I'm finding a little more confidence and trust in myself to know my limits and to not feel like I need to prove anything by my attendance at the show. You know what I mean? Like there is like, people don't really talk about the pressure to not call out. And like, it shouldn't be a thing, but it absolutely is. And of course I want every opportunity to play Elphaba. It's a dream. I would never call out if it were up to me, but unfortunately my body and my desires and my ego are not always on the same page. So I'm still finding what my routine is. I still swear by the 8 hours of sleep, though. I absolutely swear by that. But I'm figuring out how to work some conversation. I like to call my mom and talk to my mom. I think that's important. My grandparents. And you start realizing what's in your control and the things that are in your control, what your priorities are in that little pocket. And That's what I'm still, when we talk again at the end of my contract, I'll have a completely different answer. I definitely
I can't wait.
I have certain rules. No alcohol, very little processed sugar. Those rules are constant. But as far as routines go, because the weather also changes the game too. If allergies, it's game over if there's allergies, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
I feel your pain. I've been getting allergy shots for years because it just can take you down. And it's hard to wrap your mind around everything that you have to do and everything that you have to process in service, to use your word, of what you do every single evening, sometimes twice a day.
Yeah.
So it's really remarkable to think about. And again, I always wrestle with this word sacrifice. Is it a sacrifice if you're doing it in service of something that you've dreamed of and something that you have always wanted to do and something that you're so grateful for? And it is still a sacrifice.
Yeah.
In my view, it's a sacrifice, because sacrifice doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just acknowledging it's a sacrifice.
I mean, I think that it's very easy to look at Broadway performers and Olympic medalists and anybody that is succeeding in their field. I think it's very easy to look at them. I'm guilty of this too. And just think that they're superhuman. And I've come to terms very quickly in this role knowing that I'm not. I'm not superhuman at all. However, the human body is amazing. The human will is amazing. Our instrument is so resilient, but it's still human. And so, sure, sacrifice can sound very I have to sacrifice so much. But you said, it's in service to something so much bigger, so much greater. And it's fleeting. It's fleeting. I'm doing this for a year and not even anymore, 10 more months. And it's going to go by like that. So it can be hard. I can have hard days. I can feel like I don't want to go do it even. And that can exist with me being the most grateful I think I've ever been in my whole life, and the most fulfilled I think I've ever been so far in my life. All of it can exist. I've been able to acknowledge how complex the experience is through this and leave room for it to become more complex or more simple. I think that any growth happens in any field when you realize that you have no idea what you're doing.
So beautifully said, Keri. As we wrap up our conversation, you've been so generous with your time, and I know we want to rest those vocal cords. Just to wind down our conversation, you may not be talking to people at the stage door, but when you're at that stage door and you're signing autographs and you're taking pictures, what do you want them to feel?
Oh my gosh, I want them to feel seen. I want them to feel like I'm no different than they are. That, to use an analogy, a metaphor that my husband and I often use, we're all just in different lanes. We're all on a beautiful road, and we're all in an amazing car, but we're all in different lanes, but I'm not better than anyone. And so at the stage door, people are always it means so much to them to meet people that they see on that stage, not just me, but anybody they see on that stage. And that's such a huge testament to their generosity as audience members. And so when I sign, I want to look them in their eyes. I want to let them know that even though they're maybe one of nearly 2,000 people that saw the show that night, that I'm very grateful they were there. That's what I think about on stage. I think about singular people. Even though I don't know who they are, I really think about them. I really do.
Well, Keri, you have impacted and will continue to impact so many people that you've had the opportunity to meet and so many people that you never will meet in such an incredibly profound way, such an incredibly positive way. What you've shared today, I'm so grateful for. I'll be thinking about all that you shared for a long time to come. I'm already looking forward to that second conversation that we're going to get to have at the end of this contract, if not before, when we can explore where you are in this journey at that point and everything that you've learned since our conversation today. Keri René Fuller, there is no question in my mind, you are a tarp puller, certified member of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family forever. Forever a part of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. I am so glad that we got to have this conversation. It is so much fun watching your career from afar and watching all that you will continue to accomplish in the future. Thank you so much, Keri.
Thank you so much for having me. It really was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keri. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.